what city?
Oshkosh, Wisconsin, August 8th, 1923.
Very good. And did you grow up and go to school in that part of Wisconsin as well?
Graduated from Oshkosh High School, then went into the Air Force in January of 1943. Army Air Force at that time. I went through the cadet program and ended up as a B-24 pilot.
Wow. Well, we've got some distance to cover, some air miles, so to speak. Now, because you grew up in Oshkosh, where I don't know back in those days if the Oshkosh Airport and the reputation for flying was what it is today, but did you see a lot of planes flying around that kind of gave you that desire?
Yeah, Oshkosh had some of the first racers. A fellow by the name of Steve Whitman went down to Cleveland and won a race on Labor Day. They used to have pylons and a race down there, and the airport is named after him, Whitman Field there now. However, they've kind of dropped the ball in Oshkosh because the county commissioners wouldn't spend enough money for a decent terminal. So Appleton, Wisconsin, 30 miles up the road, got the big airport, and you fly into Appleton now or Green Bay and then rent a car and then drive down to Oshkosh, unfortunately.
Were you an only child?
Yes.
And what did your mom and dad do?
My dad was a pattern maker for the White Carpet Company. He was very talented artistically, and he would make these patterns for rugs. It was grass rugs at first, and people put them out on their porch, you know. And then later tufted rugs for the bathroom, and he'd make the designs for those. Unfortunately, I didn't inherit any of his artistic skills.
What was it, Norm, that led you to want to be in the Army Air Corps?
Because I didn't want the walking army. And I went up to Green Bay and talked to the Coast Guard people, and that didn't turn me on too much. So I went down to Milwaukee and took a series of tests and qualified for the Army Air Force.
And you were just 20 years old?
19.
19. Young kid.
Yes, yes.
And the war was underway.
Yes.
Did you have any sense of what your part in that would be?
No, I just had one. I either wanted to go in the Navy or the Air Force. I wanted no part of the infantry.
So let's, where did you do your basic training and then your flight school?
Well, we went down to Miami Beach and stayed in a hotel right across from the Hotel New Yorker, and the Hotel New Yorker, the back of it was right on the ocean. So all we had to do was walk across the street with our swimming suits and go in swimming. Pretty nice. Was there for 30 days, and then went to Capital University in Columbus, Ohio, and there for 3 months, and very wonderful time there, wonderful teachers. It was a Presbyterian school, and then went on to Nashville, Tennessee for a classification. You took a series of tests there, depth perception and several things like that. And you became a pilot, navigator, or bombardier, or went, if you flunked all those things, you went to what they call grease gun tech in Randolph Field in Texas. And I happened to, I really wasn't that interested in flying, but I passed all the tests and I ended up as a B-24 pilot.
And
primary in Jackson, Tennessee, basic in Newport, Arkansas, advanced in Blytheville, Arkansas, and then back to Maxwell Field for B-24 transition. That was learning how to fly the B-24.
Was the B-24 a pretty big plane?
Yeah, it actually held more bombs, carried a bigger bomb load than the B-17 that had the notoriety as a better plane to fly. It was easier to fly, but the B-24 was a good plane. They had Pratt & Whitney engines. And the B-17 had Curtiss-Wright engines, and you'd hear them popping away when they were ready to take off, you know, and then they put the power on and they'd take off all right. But the Pratt & Whitney were much better engines. It was built around 4 good engines.
Were you homesick at all as you went away to your various training opportunities?
It didn't seem that way, no. I did have a short leave after I graduated from advanced, and I was home for 5 or 7 days, something like that, and then went back down to Maxwell Field.
And did you have a deployment overseas?
I was on anti-sub patrol in the Caribbean out of Havana. Flew anti-sub patrol for a while there. Then I went back up to Westover Field, and then back to Charleston, South Carolina, where I was crew number 52. They took 1 through 50 and sent them down to South America and then over the ocean to North Africa, and they ended up in Foggia, Italy. But I went back up to Westover Field, which was pretty nice. Game of numbers, you know, where you were.
Did any of those that you came up through the ranks with end up in a combat situation where they
Yes.
lost their life?
Yes, some did. One crew went down. The pilot's name was Bill, B-I-L-L-S, and they flew from South America to North Africa, and they went down somewhere in the ocean. Never made it.
Not because of being shot down, but
No,
just
no,
mechanical
just
failure?
Mechanical failure, yeah.
What memories do you have of being part of a military operation that was both stateside as well as overseas in the midst of a war?
Well, I eventually ended up at Ephrata Air Force Base with my crew
Where is that?
in Ephrata, Washington, Central
Oh my
Washington.
goodness. I thought that couldn't be just up the road from Wenatchee, where I grew up, but that's exactly what you meant.
Yeah,
I was picturing someplace out in the Middle East.
yeah. We used to ride the back of one of these troop carriers, and I remember leaving. I got out there in August, and I remember leaving in the daytime. It was very hot, 90 degrees. Coming home at night, it was in the 40s or 50s, and I darn near froze to death in my khakis on the back of that truck. I learned. But, yeah, from there, we were supposed to go to California, San Diego, to pick up B-24s. They were made at the Consolidated Aircraft factory there in San Diego, but we were stuck in Ephrata because production hadn't caught up with the troops yet. So I was there when they dropped the bomb, and of course I was in shaving, and somebody said, "Hey, they dropped a big bomb, the war's going to be over." And I said, what else is new? And then I went into my room, turned on the radio, and by gosh, they had. And then a few days later, they dropped the second one. But I understand they only had 2, but the enemy didn't know that. One on Hiroshima and the other on Nagasaki, you know. And that's all we had.
As you recall, did you feel that that was a good decision that Truman made?
I have to agree with it. It took quite a few lives in those cities, but it saved thousands of American lives if we had tried to take those islands one by one to get to Japan. So I think I have to agree with Harry Truman. It was a good decision.
Were you proud to be in the military?
Yes, yes. I was glad to be in the Air Force, and I decided to get out, and I guess it was a good decision because after 4 or 5 years they ran out of money, and they discharged a lot of people that had decided to make a career out of the Air Force. They kept, of course, their they didn't have the Air Force Academy in those days. The West Point people were put into the Air Force, and I had contact with several of them, and they were well trained.
Norm, what do you think was shaped in your thinking, your way of looking at life or the world, that was a result of your military experience?
Well, it gave me confidence. You know, I was all set to go to work for Alice Chalmers in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, who had a big defense budget there. They made all kinds of stuff for the military. And I was going to work there, and then I found out that I'd better get into something or I would have been drafted in the infantry. So I passed my tests and went in the Army Air Force, started out in Miami Beach. That was nice.
So you gained some confidence
Oh,
in what
yes.
you could do.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I didn't think I could ever make it in college, and so I found out after I got in the Air Force there was some college people, they put their pants on one leg at a time like the rest of us.
And what did you end up doing professionally after the war?
Well, I went to Oshkosh State Teachers College for a year, and it's now known as the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh. Sounds better than Oshkosh State Teachers College. But it was a pre-professional school. You got a lot of the things you'd get down on the main campus in Madison, but you were able to get them in Oshkosh, and then as a junior, you went on to the University of Wisconsin. Well, I was there for a year, and then I went to work for Kimberly-Clark up in Neenah, Wisconsin. They were, well, it was a lifetime job if you wanted to stay there. And as long as you behaved and didn't pinch any of the girls on the graveyard shift. And so I left there, and then I went on to college. Moved out west, had a gal friend from Wenatchee.
No kidding.
And
What was her family name?
Peterson. And Dad worked for the power company there. I think it was a PUD, if I remember right.
Chelan County PUD?
Yeah, that sounds right. And then I think Puget Power eventually took them over. But they were a very lovely family.
This tape will likely be given to you and for you to give to your son and daughter and all.
Wonderful.
And, you know, someday, maybe, 10, 15 years from now, when you have changed your address from earth to heaven, is there anything that you'd like your son and daughter to remember that you could kind of go on record as saying right now?
Well, I gave birth to a kidney stone in Deaconess Hospital in Spokane. And there was a good-looking nurse there, student nurse. Her name was Sylvia. And I was driving up from downtown Spokane up toward 3rd Avenue. And here were a couple girls walking. One was Sylvia and the other was Nancy. So I pulled over to the curb and started to talk with them, and found out they were going to have a graduation capping that Friday night at the Methodist Church there in Spokane, and they invited me. Well, I didn't know it, but Sylvia also invited another boyfriend. But Harvey was his name. He was from Michigan, and she told him she was going out with Norm Roehl from Oshkosh, Wisconsin. He said, "Oh, a Wisconsin cheese." And we just built it up from there, and eventually got married. And that was 1951, a while ago.
And you've had some wonderful years together. Yeah. Did you continue flying after the war was over?
Just the cushions, as a passenger, in other words. No, I didn't. It was pretty expensive, for one thing.
Yeah.
And I guess I didn't like flying well enough. I did go up to St. Paul, University Avenue there, and I went to Northwest Airlines office. Got there on a Monday morning, and there were probably 10 guys there. And I got talking with them. One had 1,200 hours, other 14, 7, 800. I had 600. So I picked up an application and then spent a couple days in Minneapolis. It was a good town. And then drove on back to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and ended up at Oshkosh State Teachers College. And then...
Did you teach?
Yes, I did.
What was your level of school that you taught?
Middle school. 24 years in Bellevue.
At what school over there?
Well, I started out at Ashwood, and then I moved to Wilburton, and then they closed that, and I went up to Spirit Ridge. I retired from Spirit Ridge.
And what, Norm, was your area of specialty?
Well, you taught everything but art, music, and PE. They had specialists for that.
So general studies?
Yes.
Did you like to teach?
Very much, very much. I enjoyed all the kids, 95% of the parents, and 50% of the administrators.
Yes.
I had one administrator that everybody in the district knew, and I'd go to the Bellevue Education Association's bi-monthly meetings, and they'd ask me, "What are you doing, Norm?" I said, "Well, I'm teaching at Wilburton." "Oh, sorry for you." He was well known.
Did you ever have any secret aspirations of being a stand-up comedian?
No, no.
You're a pretty funny guy. I love your dry sense of humor.
Yeah, well, my lucky thing in life was meeting Sylvia. Unfortunately, she's in a care unit now, and but yesterday I was told by the people there that they asked her to raise her arm. She raised her arm.
Wonderful.
And they said, "Put it down," and she did.
Oh, that's so wonderful. How long ago was it that she had her stroke? Is it about 1.5 years?
I think this is 18 months.
Yeah. It's been a long battle. I feel for you, man.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, you're glad to see a little progress.
You bet.
But our kids have been unusually supportive. They've come up from Boise and Denver, and well, they just love their mother.
Yeah.
Never any mother-daughter fights that you hear of. And our son just worshipped her too.
Well, she's in the Lord's hands, and we trust the Lord to give us a good future.
Oh yes, if anybody is going to make heaven, it'll be Sylvia. She read her Bible every day when she was able to, and it was just a wonderful experience, and that's why both of our kids are good Christians. Their mother provided that leadership.
It sounds like she had a pretty good influence on you, too.
Well, I don't think I discouraged it.
Yeah. What would you like to share with your son and your daughter that you know, if you could say something that you want to make sure that they never forget, what would it be?
Well, that both Mother and I just love them very much and appreciate the fact they never gave us any trouble as they were growing up. They both inherited their mother's memory. They both graduated from the University of Washington, Phi Beta Kappa, and magna cum laude.
Wow.
Our daughter went on to the University of Southern California and spent 2 years there and got her MBA. And when she graduated from USC, she had 6 job offers. And she took one with Ernst & Young. She'd worked there when she was between her first and second year at USC, and they were awful good to her, so she worked there for a time. And she had to leave them because her husband was the chief financial officer of the Long Beach Press Telegram, and somewhere there would have been I think they audited the Long Beach Press, so she went to work with for Deloitte Touche, and she became a partner there a few years later, and she's a partner now in Deloitte Touche. She always was a workaholic.
And your son, what does he do?
He graduated from the U, and he is now with, can't think it's having a senior moment, a computer firm in Boise, Idaho, Hewlett Packard.
There you go.
And they, of course, are laying off people, so I say my prayers that he isn't one of them.
Yeah.
And it's a tough time for young folks. And he left, I forget the name of the outfit, but he was with them 2 years, and he said he didn't like it most of the time he was there, but he didn't tell us because he didn't want to worry us. And I offered to send him to, I forget what school it was. Boise State or something like that for an MBA, but he was not interested in an MBA, and so he didn't get one. But I thought it would be to his advantage, but there's a lot of MBA people looking for work now. Unfortunately, you probably talk with quite a few of them and give them some encouragement.
We all need encouragement, don't we?
We surely do.
Yeah. Anybody ever tell you that you reminded them of J. Edgar Hoover?
No, not J. Edgar. But I admire J. Edgar Hoover a lot. I knew a FBI agent here on Mercer Island. Bruce Kosaki was his name. He graduated from the University of Notre Dame. His mother was Irish, his dad was Polish. Kosaki was the name. And he was a drum major of the Notre Dame marching band.
How about that?
And he played the trumpet. And we used to go down to the Roanoke Tavern when before we had TV, and they had a TV down there, and we'd watch Notre Dame play USC. Well, I would be pulling for USC, and he'd be pulling for Notre Dame, and he'd play the trumpet and play the Notre Dame fight song down at the Roanoke Tavern. So it was a very interesting Saturday afternoon. I haven't seen Bruce for some time. I understand he lives up on Bainbridge or one of the islands.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a very, very sharp fellow.
Anything else other than recognizing confidence that the military inbred within you? Anything else that you credit your years in the Air Force as being part of who you are today?
Well, it gave you confidence to do a lot of things. And especially going through pilot school and then becoming a B-24 pilot gave you a lot of confidence. I should have pursued that Northwest airline. Hindsight.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I had the 4-engine time, but I had no idea they were going to grow the way they did. But I'm sure I would have gotten on with my 4-engine time. You know, you start there as a co-pilot, and then as the airline expands, the pilot on a 737 will go to a DC-10 or something like that, and you move from the right seat to the left seat on a 737, then up to the DC-10, and like my neighbor here on Mercer Island, Chuck Payne was a 747 captain. Just went to his service a week ago Sunday. He passed away. He was a year older than I was. I'm 85.
It's been a good life.
It has been a very wonderful life, and I thank God.
Thanks for sharing your memories with us.